The call came on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing quarterly reports for Sterling Hospitality Group. My assistant buzzed through. "Mr. Sterling, you have a call from Elegant Events Wedding Planning." I almost declined. Then I remembered. My younger brother Marcus was getting married next month. I'd paid the deposit 6 months ago when I heard they were struggling with costs. $50,000 to ensure my brother had the wedding he dreamed of. The family never knew it came from me. David Sterling speaking. "Mr. Sterling, this is Amanda from Elegant Events. I'm calling about the Henderson Miller wedding next month." Her voice sounded strained. "I have some uncomfortable news about your invitation." I set down my pen. "Go ahead. Your family contacted us yesterday. They've asked us to remove you from the guest list entirely. They said there was a family disagreement, and they specifically requested that you not attend the ceremony or reception." The words hit like a physical blow, but I kept my voice steady. "I see. However," Amanda continued quickly, "they also asked if they could keep the $50,000 deposit you paid for the event. Mrs. Henderson said the family had already spent that money on other wedding expenses." For a moment I said nothing. Through my office window I could see the city skyline, half of which I owned through various investment companies. My family had no idea that their disappointing son, who they claimed never amounted to anything, controlled a hospitality empire worth $3.8 billion. "Mr. Sterling? Are you there?" "Yes," I said calmly. "I'd like you to cancel the entire wedding." "I'm sorry, what?" "Cancel the Henderson Miller wedding. All of it. The venue, the catering, the flowers, everything." Amanda's voice rose in panic. "Sir, I don't understand. You're not the groom, you can't just—" "Amanda," I interrupted gently, "what's the name of your company?" "Elegant Events Wedding Planning." "And who owns Elegant Events?" I heard papers rustling. Sterling Event Holdings." "And who owns Sterling Event Holdings?" A longer pause. "Sterling Hospitality Group." "That's right. And I'm David Sterling, CEO and sole owner of Sterling Hospitality Group. So yes, I can cancel this wedding. In fact, let me be more specific. Cancel their reservation at the Grand Harbor Hotel as well. That's one of mine too. And Symphonic Catering? Also mine. The flower arrangements from Premier Botanical? Mine. The photography package from Lens and Light Studios? Mine as well." "Mr. Sterling, I had no idea you were." "There's more, Amanda. The bachelor party reservation at Harbor View Resort? Mine. The rehearsal dinner at Coastal Elite Restaurant? Mine. Even the limousine service they booked through Prestige Transportation? Mine." I could hear her breathing heavily on the other end of the line. "But sir, the wedding is in 3 weeks. There are 200 guests, deposits paid. Cancel everything. Refund any deposits paid by guests for accommodations. Send the Henderson and Miller families a bill for the full amount they owe, minus my original $50,000 deposit, which I'm keeping as a cancellation fee. Mr. Sterling, this will destroy the wedding. There's no way they can find alternative vendors this close to the date. That's not my problem anymore." After hanging up, I sat back in my chair. 28 years old, and my family still saw me as the college dropout who threw his life away when I left Harvard Business School to start my first company. They had no idea that the small event planning business I'd mentioned casually over the years had grown into one of the largest hospitality empires on the East Coast. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "David, we need to talk about your recent behavior. Your attitude toward Marcus and Jennifer has been unacceptable. We think it's best if you don't attend the wedding. We'll be keeping the money you contributed since we've already spent it." I smiled and typed back, "Understood. Enjoy the celebration." What my family didn't know was that I'd been quietly building my empire for 8 years. It started when I dropped out of Harvard, not because I was failing but because I'd identified a gap in the luxury event market. While my family saw my decision as giving up, I was actually walking away from a guaranteed corporate job to bet everything on my vision. The first company, Sterling Events, began in my studio apartment. I planned corporate gatherings and small weddings, working 18-hour days and sleeping on my office couch. My family's response? "David's going through a phase. He'll be back to real work soon." Within 2 years, I'd bought my first property, a small event venue that was struggling financially. My family still thought I was playing entrepreneur. while they focused on my brother Marcus, who was following the traditional path through law school. By year 4 I owned 6 venues across 3 states. Sterling Hospitality Group was born and I started acquiring complementary businesses. Catering companies, florists, photographers, transportation services. Every aspect of the luxury event industry. My family remained oblivious. At holiday gatherings they'd ask about my little business, while discussing Marcus's promising career at his law firm. When I bought my first hotel, a boutique property downtown, I mentioned it casually as expanding into accommodations. They nodded politely and changed the subject. The real growth came in years 6 and 7. I acquired struggling hospitality companies during the economic downturn, rebuilding them into profitable enterprises. Harborview Resort, Grand Harbor Hotel, the entire coastal elite restaurant chain. All companies my family had heard of, never realizing their disappointing son owned them. My phone started ringing 30 minutes after my conversation with Amanda. David. It was my father's voice, tense and confused. I just got a call from some woman saying our wedding venue was canceled. There must be some mistake. No mistake, Dad. What do you mean no mistake? This is ridiculous. We have a contract. A contract with Sterling Event Holdings, which is owned by Sterling Hospitality Group, which is owned by me. The line went quiet for several seconds. David, what are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that you canceled my invitation to my own brother's wedding while asking to keep the $50,000 I paid for it. So I canceled everything else. You paid for the wedding? The venue, the catering, the hotel blocks, the flowers, the photography, the rehearsal dinner, the bachelor party, the transportation, all of it goes through companies I own. Congratulations, Dad. You just uninvited the person who was paying for your son's entire wedding. Another long silence. David, I think there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. You made it clear I'm not welcome at family events. So my companies aren't welcome to provide services for family events either. Companies? David, what companies? You plan parties. I almost laughed. After 8 years he still thought I plan birthday parties. Dad, I own Sterling Hospitality Group. We control 47 venues, 23 restaurants, 12 hotels, 6 catering companies, and 11 event service providers across 7 states. We generated $1.2 billion in revenue last year. That's impossible. Check our corporate website. Check the business registry. Check Forbes' list of fastest-growing private companies. We were number 17 last year. I heard muffled conversation in the background. Mom had joined the call. David, Mom's voice came through, shaky and uncertain. We had no idea you were successful. You never told us. I tried to tell you. Every family gathering for 8 years I tried to share what I was building. Remember when I mentioned buying the Harborview Resort? You said it was nice that I was staying busy. When I told you about expanding into hotels, you asked when I was going to get a real job. But you dropped out of Harvard. To build this empire. I saw an opportunity and I took it. While Marcus was studying contract law, I was writing contracts that generated millions in revenue. My father cleared his throat. David, surely we can work something out. Marcus's wedding is no longer my concern. You uninvited me, remember? You made it clear that my presence would somehow diminish your perfect family celebration. We didn't know. You didn't know because you never bothered to actually listen to what I was telling you. You saw a Harvard dropout and decided I was a failure. You never looked deeper. My phone buzzed with another call. Amanda again. Dad, I need to take this. David, wait. I switched to the other line. Amanda. Mr. Sterling, I've been getting calls all morning. Your brother, your parents, even the bride's family. They're all asking about rebooking. And, sir, with 3 weeks' notice it's impossible. Every quality venue in the region is booked solid. The catering companies are committed to other events. There just aren't alternatives available. What about the Grandview Manor? That's one of your properties too, sir. And it's already booked for that weekend. Right. Well, then they'll need to figure something else out. Mr. Sterling, your mother called crying. She said there are 200 people invited, family flying in from across the country. She's begging for any solution. I considered this. Any solution? Yes, sir. All right. Here's what we'll do. They can have the wedding at the Grandview Manor, my smallest venue. Reception capacity for 80 people maximum. Basic catering package, house flowers, staff photographer only. Total cost, $200,000 paid in advance. Sir, that's 4 times what they were paying before and half the space. That's the offer. They wanted to exclude me from their celebration while keeping my money. Now they can include me in their decision-making while paying market rates. And if they refuse? Then they can get married at City Hall. I hung up and returned to my work. 3 hours later, Marcus called directly. David, what the hell is going on? You're getting married. Congratulations. Don't play games with me. Mom's been crying all day. Dad's had 6 phone calls with different vendors and everyone keeps telling him you own their companies. What kind of sick joke is this? It's not a joke, Marcus. It's business. Business? This is my wedding. Your wedding that I was financing. Your wedding that I was uninvited from. Your wedding that the family decided I wasn't worthy to attend. We thought it would be better. You thought it would be better to exclude your brother from the most important day of your life, while secretly keeping the money he contributed. Does that sound like family behavior to you? Marcus was quiet for a moment. We didn't know the money came from you. Mom asked me for help 6 months ago. She said you were struggling with wedding costs and Jennifer's family couldn't contribute much. I wrote a check for $50,000 that same day. David, I didn't know. You didn't know because you never asked. Just like you never asked about my business, my life, or anything else. You just assumed I was the family screw-up and moved on. That's not true. Marcus, when was the last time you asked me a genuine question about my life? When was the last time any of you showed actual interest in what I do? The line was quiet. I'll make you a deal, I continued. You can have your wedding at one of my venues. But I want 3 things. A formal apology from the entire family, an acknowledgement that you misjudged me, and my invitation restored, not as a courtesy but because you actually want me there. David, of course we want you there. Do you? Or do you want my money there? That's not fair. Fair? You uninvited your own brother from your wedding while keeping his financial contribution. Explain to me what's fair about that. Marcus sighed heavily. What happens if we don't agree to your terms? Then you figure out how to have a wedding with 3 weeks' notice and no connections in the industry. Good luck with that. And if we do agree? Then you get married at a beautiful venue with excellent service, and your brother stands beside you as family should. I need to talk to Jennifer and our parents. Of course you do. That evening my phone rang again. This time it was Jennifer, Marcus's fiancée. David? It's Jennifer. I think we need to talk. Congratulations on your engagement. Thank you. Listen, I had no idea about any of this. Marcus never told me you were helping with costs, and I certainly didn't know about your businesses. Most people don't. I've been doing research all afternoon. Sterling Hospitality Group is huge. You own half the venues I dreamed of having my wedding at when I was growing up. It's been a good few years. David, I owe you an apology. We all do. I was there when your parents decided not to invite you. I should have spoken up. Why didn't you? Honestly, because Marcus painted you as the irresponsible brother who never got his act together. I believed him. And now I realize that Marcus doesn't actually know you at all. None of them do. Jennifer paused and I could hear emotion in her voice. David, I would be honored to have you at our wedding. Not because of your businesses or your money, but because you're Marcus's brother and you clearly care about family more than the rest of them realized. What does Marcus say? Marcus is processing. He's realizing that his big brother isn't who he thought he was. It's a lot to take in. And your parents? They're scared. They've spent years treating you like the family disappointment, and now they're learning you're probably the most successful person in the room at any gathering. Success isn't just about money. No, but respect should be about recognizing when someone deserves it. And clearly you've deserved it for a long time. The next day Amanda called with an update. Mr. Sterling, your family has accepted your terms. They've paid the deposit for the Grandview Manor package, and they've formally requested that your invitation be restored. Did they agree to all the conditions? Yes, sir. Your father specifically asked me to tell you that the family would like to meet with you before the wedding to offer a formal apology. And your brother wants to know if you'd consider being his best man. I sat back in my chair looking out at the city skyline again. 8 years of building an empire while my family saw only failure. 8 years of trying to share my success while they heard only excuses. 8 years of proving myself while they waited for me to grow up. Amanda. Yes, sir. Tell them we'll have the meeting. Schedule it for this Saturday at the Harborview Resort. My private dining room. And Amanda. Yes. Make sure the catering is perfect. The meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. on Saturday. I arrived early and stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. This resort had been my biggest acquisition. A failing property that I'd transformed into the region's premier destination. The private dining room alone was worth more than most people's homes. My family arrived together. Mom, Dad, Marcus, and Jennifer. They looked around the room with obvious amazement. Crystal chandeliers, hand-carved furniture. A view that stretched for miles across the water. David, Dad said, extending his hand formally. Thank you for meeting with us. Have a seat. They settled around the mahogany table as servers brought in lunch, prepared by the same kitchen that catered to governors and celebrities. This place is incredible, Mom said quietly. I had no idea that I owned it. I mentioned buying a resort property 3 years ago. You said you were expanding your business. This was the expansion. Dad cleared his throat. David, we owe you an apology. A major one. Go ahead. We misjudged you. Badly. For years we saw what we expected to see instead of what was actually happening. Marcus leaned forward. David, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for dismissing your achievements, for assuming you were irresponsible, and for letting the family uninvite you from my wedding. Why did you assume I was irresponsible? Because you dropped out of Harvard. Because you never had a traditional job. Because you never bragged about your success. Would bragging have helped? No, but maybe if you'd been more direct about what you were building. I smiled slightly. Marcus, I told you 3 years ago that I'd acquired a hotel chain. You said, that's nice, and changed the subject to your latest case at the law firm. I didn't realize you meant you owned them. What did you think I meant? He had no answer. Jennifer spoke up. David, we'd like to start over. All of us. We want to know about your life, your business, your plans. We want to be real family. And if I hadn't turned out to be wealthy? What then? Dad answered honestly, then we probably would have continued misjudging you. That's what makes this so shameful. At least you're honest. Mom had tears in her eyes. David, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of what you've built, but more than that, I'm proud that you still wanted to help with the wedding even after how we treated you. You're my family. That matters to me even when it doesn't seem to matter to you. Marcus stood up and walked around the table. David, I know I don't deserve it, but I'd like to ask again. Would you be my best man? I looked at my younger brother. The golden child who'd followed every family expectation, who'd never taken a risk or built something from nothing. For the first time I saw uncertainty in his eyes. He was finally seeing me clearly. Marcus, I'd be honored. The wedding took place 3 weeks later at the Grandview Manor. Despite being my smallest venue, it was still spectacular. Overlooking the coastline with gardens that had been featured in architectural magazines. The family that had once dismissed my party planning business watched in amazement as my staff executed a flawless celebration. During my best man speech, I looked out at the 200 guests, many of whom had heard whispered conversations about my business empire throughout the evening. When Marcus and I were kids, I began. He always looked up to me. Somewhere along the way that changed. He started seeing me as the brother who took the wrong path, who gave up on conventional success. I paused, making eye contact with my family. What Marcus didn't realize is that I never gave up on success. I just defined it differently. Success isn't about meeting other people's expectations. It's about building something meaningful and sharing it with the people you love. I raised my glass. To Marcus and Jennifer, may you build something beautiful together, and may you always remember that the best achievements are the ones you share with family. Later, as the evening wound down, Dad approached me on the terrace. David, I have a question. Sure. Why didn't you just tell us? Why let us think you were struggling all these years? I considered this carefully. Dad, I tried to tell you. But more than that, I wanted you to be proud of me for who I was, not what I owned. I wanted you to see that dropping out of Harvard was the right choice, that building something from scratch had value. And we failed that test. You did. But you passed the test that mattered more. Which test was that? Tonight. When you had the chance to choose pride over family, you chose family. When you realized you were wrong, you admitted it. That's worth more than years of recognition. Dad put his hand on my shoulder. I'm proud of you, son. Not just for your success but for your character. You had every right to walk away from this family, and instead you saved your brother's wedding. Family is family, Dad. Even when they don't act like it. As I drove home that night, I reflected on the 8 years I'd spent building my empire in plain sight of a family that couldn't see it. The Harvard dropout who became a billionaire. The party planner who created a hospitality dynasty. The family disappointment who turned out to be the family foundation. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Thank you for everything. I'm sorry it took me so long to see who you really are. I'm lucky to have you as a brother. I smiled and typed back, welcome to the family business. Because that's what it had always been about. Not just building companies but building something that could bring family together. It just took them a little longer to realize it. The next morning I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. The wedding had been featured on several social media accounts, and people were sharing photos of the venue, the food, and the celebration. But more importantly, I had messages from my parents, my brother, and Jennifer, all asking when we could have dinner again. Real dinner this time. Family dinner. As I sat in my office Monday morning looking out at the city skyline that I'd helped shape, I realized something important. Success isn't about proving people wrong. It's about being strong enough to keep loving them even when they are wrong. And sometimes if you're patient enough, they figure it out on their own.